Enzymes, protein molecules that act as catalysts in biochemical reactions. Eon, the longest unit of geological time. Epidermis, the outermost layer of skin consisting of several layers of epithelial cells, notably keratinocytes, and in the inner layer of the epidermis, basal cells and melanocytes, the outer layer of cells in the plant body, often covered by a waxy cuticle. Epididymis, a long, convoluted duct on the testis where sperms are stored. Epiglottis, a cap of tissue that closes off the trachea during swallowing. Epinephrine, a hormone produced by the adrenal medulla and secreted under stress. This contributes to the fight response. Epistasis, the masking of the effects by one gene by the action of another. Example, widow's peak masked by the baldness gene. Epithelial tissue, cells in animals that are closely packed in either single or multiple layers and which covers both internal and external surfaces of the animal body, also referred to as epithelium. Epoch, subdivision of a geological period. Eras, one of the major divisions of the geological time scale. Estrogen, a female sex hormone that performs many important functions in reproduction. Ethylene, a gaseous plant hormone that stimulates fruit ripening and the dropping of leaves. Eubacteria, the subunit of the Monera that includes the true bacteria such as E. coli, one of the three major groups of prokaryotes in the kingdom Monera. The eubacteria have cell walls containing peptidoglycan. Euglenoids, term applied to a division of protozoans that have one long flagellum, no cell wall, and which may have chloroplasts. Evaporation, the part of the hydrologic cycle in which liquid water is converted to vapor and enters the atmosphere. Excretion, the process of removing the waste products of cellular metabolism from the body. Exine, outer covering of pollen grains, often containing sporopollenin, an acid-resistant polysaccharide that allows pollen grains to become fossils. Exocytosis, the process in which a membrane-enclosed vesicle fuses with the plasma membrane and then opens and releases its contents to the outside. Exoskeleton, a hard, jointed external covering that encloses the muscles and organs of an organism, typical of many arthropods including insects. Exponential rate, an extremely rapid increase. Example, in the rate of population growth. Expression, in relation to genes, the phenotypic manifestation of a trait. Expression may be age-dependent. Example, Huntington disease, or affected by environmental factors. Example, dark fur on a Siamese cat. Extinction, the elimination of all individuals in a group, both by natural, like in dinosaurs, trilobites, etc., and human-induced, dodo, passenger pigeon, liberals, etc. Eye spot, a pigmented photoreceptor in euglenoids. The eye spot senses light and orients the cell for maximum rates of photosynthesis. Picture 2. Term applied to a photosensitive area in starfish. Families. In taxonomy, term applied to a subcategory within orders. Term applied to a group of similar things such as languages, chromosomes, etc. Fats. Triglycerides that are solid at room temperature. Fauna. Term referring collectively to all animals in the area, the zoological counterpart of flora. Feces. Semi-solid material containing undigested food, bacteria, bilirubin, and water that is produced in the large intestine and eliminated from the body. Femur. The upper leg bone. Fermentation. The synthesis of ATP in the absence of oxygen through glycolysis. Fibroblast. The term applied to a cell of connective tissue that is separated from similar cells by some degree of matrix material. Fibroblasts secrete elastin and collagen protein fibers. Filtration. The removal of water and solutes from the blood. Occurs in the glomerulus of the nephron. First law of thermodynamics or conservation. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It changes from one form to another. Flagella. Long, whip-like locomotion organelles found in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Singular is flagellum. Eukaryotic flagella have an internal arrangement of microtubules in a 9+2 array. Flame cell. A specialized cell at the blind end of nephridium that alters body builds. Flora. Term collectively applied to all of the plants in an area, the botanical counterpart of fauna. Fluid feeders. Animals such as aphids, ticks, and mosquitoes that pierce the body of a host plant or animal and obtain food from ingesting its bills. Fluid mosaic. Widely accepted model of the plasma membrane in which proteins, that is the mosaic, are embedded in lipids. Follicle stimulating hormone or FSH. A hormone secreted by the anterior pituitary that promotes gamete formation in both males and females. Fontanelles. Membranous area in the human cranial bones that do not form bony structures until the child is 14 to 18 months old, known as soft spots. Food chain. The simplest representation of energy bow in a community. At the base is energy stored in plants, which are eaten by small organisms, which in turn are eaten by progressively larger organisms. The food chain is an oversimplification in that most animals do not eat only one type of organism. Food pyramid. A way of depicting energy bow in an ecosystem. Shows producers, mostly plants and other phototrophs, on the first level and consumers on the higher levels. Foraminifera. Single-celled protists that secrete a shell or test. Accumulations of the shells of dead foraminifera and other microscopic sea creatures form chalk deposits. Foveae. The area of the eye in which the cones are concentrated. Frontal lobe. The lobe of the cerebral cortex that is responsible for motor activity, speech, and thought processes. Fruit. A ripened ovary wall produced from a flower. Fucoxanthin. Brown accessory pigment found in and characteristic of the brown algae. Fungi. Non-mobile, heterotrophic, mostly multicellular eukaryotes, including yeasts and mushrooms. Gaia. A hypothetical superorganism composed of the Earth's four spheres, the biosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and atmosphere. Gametes, haploid reproductive cells, ovum and sperm. Ganglia, clusters of neurons that receive and process signals, found in batworms and earthworms. Gap junctions, junctions between the plasma membranes of animal cells that allow communication between the cytoplasm of adjacent cells. Gastric pits, the folds and grooves into which the stomach lining is arranged. Gastroesophageal sphincter, a ring of muscle at the junction of the esophagus and the stomach that remains closed except during swallowing to prevent the stomach contents from entering the esophagus. Genera, taxonomic subcategories within families, singular, genus, composed of one or more species. Genes, specific segments of DNA that control cell structure and function, the functional units of inheritance. Sequence of DNA bases usually code for a polypeptide sequence of amino acids. Genetics, the study of the structure and function of genes and the transmission of genes from parents to offspring. Genital herpes, a sexually transmitted disease caused by the herpes virus, results in sores on the mucous membrane of the mouth or genitals. Genome, the set of genes carried by an individual, the set of genes shared by members of a reproductive unit such as a population or species. Genotype, the genetic or allelic makeup of an organism with regard to an observed trait. Geotropism, plants' response to gravity. Roots grow downward, showing positive geotropism, while shoots grow upward in a negative response. Germ cells, collective term for cells in the reproductive organs of multicellular organisms that divide by meiosis to produce gametes. Gestation, period of time between fertilization and birth of an animal, commonly called pregnancy. Gibberellins, a group of hormones that stimulate cell division and elongation in plants. Gibberellic acid or Ga, the first of this class to be discovered, causes bolting or extreme elongation of stems. Ga is also applied to certain plants to promote larger fruits. Gill slits, opening or clefts between the gill arches in fish. Water taken in by the mouth passes through the gill slits and bathes the gills. Also, rudimentary grooves in the neck region of the embryos of air-breathing vertebrates such as humans, a characteristic of chordates. Ginkgos, group of seed plants today restricted to a single genus, Ginkgo biloba. Ginkgos were more diverse during the Mesozoic era. Glial cells, non-conducting cells that serve as support cells in the nervous system and help to protect neurons. Glucagon, a hormone released by the pancreas that stimulates the breakdown of glucagon and release of glucose, thereby increasing blood levels of glucose. Glucagon and insulin work together to maintain blood sugar levels. Glucocorticoids, a group of steroid hormones produced by the adrenal cortex that are important in regulating the metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Glycogen, polysaccharide consisting of numerous monosaccharide glucoses linked together, the animal equivalent of starch. Glycolipids, polysaccharides formed of sugars linked to lipids, a part of the cell membrane. Glycolysis, the universal cellular metabolic process in the cell's cytoplasm where 6-carbon glucose is split into two 3-carbon pyruvate molecule and some ATP and NADH are produced. Gnatales, group of seed plants restricted to 3 genera today, Gnatum, Ephedra and Welwitschia, the possible outgroup for flowering plants. Gonadotrophin releasing hormone, GnRH, a hormone produced by the hypothalamus that controls the secretion of luteinizing hormone. Gonads, the male and female sex organs. Gonorrhea, a sexually transmitted disease that is caused by a bacterium and damages epithelial cells of the reproductive system. Grana, a series of stacked thylakoid discs containing chlorophyll, found in the inner membrane of chloroplast. Greenhouse effect, the heating that occurs when gases such as carbon dioxide trap heat escaping from the earth and radiate it back to the surface. So called because the gases are transparent to sunlight but not to heat, and thus act like the glass in a greenhouse. Gymnosperms, flowerless, seed-bearing land plants. Living groups include the pines, ginkgos, and cycads. Naked seeds.